A Ponzi scheme is an investment fraud in which monies given by new investors are used to pay fictitious returns to previous investors. Ponzi scheme operators frequently approach potential investors by offering to put money in opportunities that they say would yield big returns with little to no risk. Welcome to today's episode of Fraud Files. Today, we will be talking about the case of a DC solar owner who received over 11-year prison term for a multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme. In Santa Cruz, California, Paulette Carpoff, 51, of Martinez, was involved in the largest criminal fraud scheme in the history of the Eastern District of California, and as a result, U.S. District Judge John A. Mendez sentenced her to 11 years and 3 months in prison, according to U.S. Attorney Phillip A. Talbert. Paulette Carpoff entered a plea of guilty to money laundering and conspiracy to conduct an offense against the United States on November 9, 2021. As the chief operating officer of DC Solar and the owner and operator of its alleged distribution arm, Carpoff allegedly played a crucial part in the fraud. DC Solar produced trailer-mounted mobile solar generators between 2011 and 2018. The company stated that emergency power for cellular towers and lights for athletic and other events were provided by mobile solar generators, which were praised for their adaptability and environmental sustainability. Due to the solar nature of MSGs, the federal government offered considerable tax credits as a big incentive for investment. Investors would pay a portion of the sales price and use DC Solar to finance the remaining amount to purchase the MSGs without ever taking possession of them. The investors later returned the MSGs to DC Solar, which later claimed to have leased them to other parties. The investors were expected to receive a piece of the lease revenue, while another portion would be used to settle the investors' financial obligations to DC Solar. However, DC Solar actually turned into a Ponzi-like scheme when the third-party leases failed to generate much revenue and the company had to pay its early investors with money from later investors. They attempted to hide the scam by, among other things, getting phony lease agreements, fabricating lease agreements, generating false financial statements, and selling investors solar generators that didn't exist. At least half of the roughly 17,000 solar generators that DC Solar purported to have produced were false. Contrary to what investors were promised, transfers of new investor capital accounted for almost 94% of the revenue claimed by DC Solar Distribution from purported third-party leasing. Paulette Carpoff was in charge of the Ponzi-style payments that covered up the absence of third-party leasing revenue for the business, prompted fabricated engineering studies for the MSGs that the business sold but never built, and assisted in duping investors into believing that DC Solar was a success. In the end, DC Solar simply stopped producing the portable solar generators it had been marketing to investors. Carpoff and her husband accumulated an excessive amount of wealth while committing the fraud, which included opulent real estate in Cabo San Lucas, Lake Tahoe, Las Vegas, the Caribbean, and over 150 luxury and collector cars. They also had a private jet subscription service and expensive jewelry. In December 2018, when search warrants were carried out in the case, authorities discovered more than $18,000 in cash in Carpoff's purse, more than $18,000 in cash in the master bedroom, more than $22,000 in cash in a safe in the master bedroom closet, and more than $9,000 in cash in the Carpoff's parked vehicles at their home. Paulette Carpoff played an integral role in the massive criminal fraud scheme. Knowing that DC Solar at best could only expect to lease a tiny fraction of its mobile solar generators, she continued the lie about the high demand for DC Solar's products, said U.S. Attorney Talbert. Thanks to the hard work of attorneys in this office and agents in the investigating agencies, this fraud was stopped and millions of dollars have been recouped. It is my hope that Carpoff's sentence will afford adequate deterrence to criminal conduct and the need to protect the public from further crimes of the defendant and promote respect for the law. Mrs. Carpoff participated in and enjoyed the spoils of an egregious, complex fraud scheme that provided the Carpoff family and associates with a luxurious lifestyle and esteemed position in the community at the expense of their community and business contacts, said Acting Special Agent in Charge Dennis Gerton of the FBI Sacramento Field Office. Complex cases like these are truly a team effort. I am grateful to the dedicated FBI special agents, forensic accountants, and professional staff who work tirelessly to investigate this case in concert with our equally dedicated partners at the IRS Criminal Investigation, FDIC Office of Inspector General, and U.S. Attorney's Office. Our office is deeply committed to identifying and investigating financial fraud. The chief operating officer of DC Solar, Paulette Carpoff, who indulged herself in luxury goods while engaged in lies and deceit, is not an innocent spouse, but rather an active conspirator who played a significant and integral role of the largest Ponzi scheme in the Eastern District of California, said IRS Criminal Investigations Special Agent in Charge, Mark H. Pearson. Her lies and deception finally caught up to her, as her hunger to amass ill-gotten wealth and material goods led her astray. Today's sentencing sends a clear message of "you will be held accountable" to those involved in schemes to defraud. This case and the outcome is representation of the great work being accomplished when collaborating with our federal partners, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Federal Depository Insurance Corporation Office of Inspector General, and the United States Attorney's Office, EDCA. Today, Paulette Carpoff was sentenced and held accountable for conspiring with others to carry out a Ponzi scheme that defrauded investors of approximately $1 billion and funded her and her husband's lavish lifestyle, said Special Agent in Charge Jeffrey D. Patano of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation Office of Inspector General. The FDIC-OIG is committed to working with our law enforcement partners to bring justice to those who undermine the integrity of the nation's financial system. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, the IRS Criminal Investigation, and the Office of Inspector General of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation looked into this case. The case was prosecuted by Assistant U.S. Attorneys Christopher S. Hales and Kevin C. Cushegan. On November 9, 1921, Jeff Carpoff was found guilty of conspiring to commit wire fraud and money laundering and received a sentence of 30 years in prison and a restitution order of $790.6 million. On November 16, 2021, Joseph W. Bayless, 46, of Martinez, was found guilty of securities fraud and conspiracy in connection with the DC Solar scheme and was given a 3-year jail sentence as well as a $481.3 million restitution order. Robert A. Carman, CFO of DC Solar, 55, of Clayton, was given a 6-year prison term and was required to pay $624 million in restitution on April 12, 2022. Alan Hansen, a former employee of DC Solar, was given an 8-year prison term and was required to pay $619 million in reparations on May 31, 2022. The sentences for 2 defendants, Ryan Guidry, 45, of Pleasant Hill, and Ronald J. Roach, 55, of Walnut Creek, who both pled guilty to felony charges associated with the fraud scheme, are set for July 26 and September 13, respectively. Guidry might be sentenced to 15 years in jail under the law. The maximum statutory punishment for Roach is 10 years in jail. The federal sentencing guidelines, which evaluates a number of elements as well as any applicable statutory factors, will be taken into account before the court decides on the actual penalties, though. And here we come to the end of today's episode of Fraud Files regarding a DC Solar owner who received over 11-year prison term for multi-billion-dollar Ponzi scheme. Please subscribe to our channel and push on that like button. Stay tuned to our channel for amazing videos like this one by clicking the bell icon. And don't forget to share your thoughts in the comment section below about this event. We'll see you in another Fraud Files soon.